Spring 1981, Monterey Bay, California. The Palmetto House Resort gleamed white against the Pacific coastline, a five-star sanctuary for America's elite. Corporate executives, politicians, entertainment moguls, they came here to unwind in luxury, to escape the pressures of power. The resort boasted pristine beaches, Michelin-starred dining, championship golf courses, and impeccable service. But in 3 months, 11 waitresses had quit, all young, all suddenly, all without real explanations. Their exit interviews were identical, pursuing other opportunities. Nobody asked questions. Nobody noticed how these girls left the general manager's office with red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands. Nobody heard what happened in the private suites after midnight, until one of them decided silence was worse than fear. Until she tucked a small tape recorder into her uniform pocket and pressed record. This is a story about how privilege becomes a weapon and fear of losing everything becomes a prison without bars. If you're loving the content, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss us in your recommendations. We upload new, exciting videos every day. Thank you for watching. Let's get into it. March 1981, start of spring season. Cassidy Brennan stood at the staff entrance of the Palmetto House, watching waves crash against the rocks below. She was 19 years old and had been working as a dining room server for 2 months. By Central Valley standards, this was an excellent job. Clean work, decent pay, benefits, and the chance to build a real career in hospitality. Cassidy had driven up from Bakersfield, lived in staff housing with 3 other girls, and dreamed of saving enough for college. She was tall, blonde, with delicate features and a shy smile. Her mother, who worked double shifts at a truck stop diner, was proud. "My daughter works at the Palmetto House. Serves senators and movie producers. Maybe she'll move up to management someday." The Palmetto House was legendary. Built in the 1920s by a railroad baron, renovated in the 70s, it sprawled across 15 acres of prime coastal property. Spanish colonial architecture, terracotta tiles, soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers. Suites with ocean view terraces, a dining room with white tablecloths and servers in crisp uniforms, a spa with every treatment imaginable. Rooms started at $400 a night, in 1981 dollars. Average people couldn't afford this place. Cassidy walked through the staff entrance, changed in the locker room, put on her burgundy vest and black tie. In the mirror, she saw a neat young woman with hair pulled back in a bun, face clean of makeup. Dress code requirements: professional, modest, invisible. She entered the dining room at 7 a.m. sharp. Breakfast service began at 8, but servers had to arrive an hour early to set tables, check silverware, polish glasses to perfection. Head server Maureen Kowalski, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, was already checking the day's reservations. "Brennan, you've got tables 12 through 16. Make sure everything's spotless," she said without looking up. Cassidy nodded and got to work. She arranged place settings, folded napkins, set out fresh flowers. The movements were automatic now. 2 months in, she could do this perfectly, but today her hands shook slightly. Maybe she'd slept badly. Maybe it was the strange dream, or maybe it was because yesterday, Deanna hadn't shown up for her shift. Deanna Fletcher had worked at the Palmetto House for 6 months. Bright, red-haired, quick with a joke, she'd become Cassidy's first real friend here. They ate lunch together, walked on the beach on their days off, talked about their futures. Deanna wanted to study marine biology, hoped to work at the Monterey Bay aquarium that was being built. She was vibrant, loud, full of life. But 2 weeks ago, something changed. Deanna went quiet. She stopped laughing, stopped making eye contact, moved through her shifts like a ghost. When Cassidy asked what was wrong, she'd say, "Nothing, just tired." Yesterday morning, she'd sent a note through another server. "I'm sick, won't be in. Tell Maureen I quit." Cassidy tried calling the staff housing. They said Deanna had moved out. Where? Nobody knew. She'd packed her things in the middle of the night, left her key with the front desk, and disappeared. Just vanished. Not the first one, muttered Cassidy's roommate when she told her. Last month, Whitney Russo did the same thing. Worked here for months, then suddenly moved out overnight. They said she got engaged and moved away, but I don't buy it. She cried herself to sleep every night that last week. Cassidy remembered Whitney, petite, dark-haired, with huge brown eyes. She'd left in January, abruptly, without saying goodbye. Cassidy hadn't thought much of it then. People quit jobs all the time. But now, with Deanna gone too, something cold settled in her chest. Something wasn't right. Guests began arriving for breakfast at 8. Distinguished men in polo shirts and slacks, their wives in designer leisure wear, teenagers in preppy clothes, CEOs, politicians, doctors, entertainment executives. Cassidy served them omelets, coffee, fresh pastries. She smiled, nodded, said, "Enjoy your meal." She was invisible, part of the backdrop. At 9 a.m., he walked in. General Manager Barrett Ashford. He was 52 and had run the Palmetto House for 14 years. A big man with a broad face, thinning hair, calculating gray eyes, and thick lips. He wore expensive suits, gold cufflinks, a Rolex. He moved slowly, deliberately, like he owned every inch of this place. When Ashford entered a room, people straightened unconsciously. He radiated authority. He walked to his usual corner table, sat down, opened the Wall Street Journal. Maureen personally brought his breakfast: eggs over easy, bacon, sourdough toast, coffee. Ashford ate in silence, never looking up. But Cassidy felt his eyes on her, watching, evaluating, like a butcher examining meat. "Brennan," Maureen called after breakfast service. "Mr. Ashford wants to see you in his office. Now." Cassidy's heart dropped. "Why?" "Not for me to say. Just go." Cassidy removed her apron, smoothed her vest, walked to the administrative wing. Ashford's office was on the second floor at the end of a carpeted corridor. Heavy oak door with a brass nameplate. Barrett J. Ashford, General Manager. She knocked. "Come in," came from inside. She pushed the door open. The office was large. Dark wood furniture, leather chairs, Persian rugs, framed photos of Ashford with celebrities and politicians on the walls. Behind a massive desk sat Ashford. He was smoking a cigar, looking out the window at the ocean. "Close the door," he said without turning. Cassidy closed it. The lock clicked. She flinched. "Come here." She approached the desk. Ashford turned to face her. His expression was calm, almost friendly. "Cassidy Brennan, 19 years old, from Bakersfield. You've been with us 2 months. Maureen says you're a good worker, efficient, professional." He took a drag of his cigar, exhaled smoke. "You want to keep working here?" "Yes," Cassidy whispered. "Of course." "Good." Ashford stood, walked around the desk, stopped close to her. He was a head taller. "Let me explain something. Our guests are very important people, very successful. They work hard. They need to relax, to unwind, to be attended to. You understand?" "Yes." "Sometimes these gentlemen need special attention, company, someone to share a drink with them in the evening, to talk, to help them relax." His voice was smooth, persuasive. "You're an attractive young woman, Cassidy. Well-mannered. Our guests would appreciate your company." Cassidy understood. Nausea rose in her throat. I can't." "You can." Ashford put his hand on her shoulder. Heavy, hot. "And you will. Because if you refuse, I'll terminate you today. And I'll write in your employment file that you stole from guests. With that on your record, you won't get hired anywhere in hospitality." Not in California, not anywhere. You'll be serving truck stop coffee for minimum wage the rest of your life. Understand? She said nothing. He squeezed her shoulder harder. I asked if you understand. Yes, she choked out. Excellent. He released her, returned to his desk. Tonight at 10, go to Suite 214. Mr. Burkhart is staying there, vice president of a Fortune 500 company. Nice man. Be friendly. Have a drink with him. Keep him company, that's all. Questions? Tears ran down Cassidy's face. She couldn't speak. You're dismissed. And wipe your face. We don't cry at work. She stumbled out of the office, ran to the staff bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and sobbed. She cried for a long time, silently, desperately. Then she washed her face with cold water, stared at her reflection, red eyes, swollen nose, and went back to work. She had to finish her shift, had to smile. Now she understood where Deanna had gone, and Whitney, and all the others. That evening at 10, Cassidy stood outside Suite 214, unable to raise her hand to knock. The hallway was empty, dimly lit, quiet except for muffled TV sounds from other rooms. She stood there for 1 minute, 2, 5. Her heart pounded. Her mind raced. Run away. Hide. Throw herself off the cliffs into the ocean. Go to the police. Call her mother. But she knew. There was nowhere to run. Ashford had all the power. He'd fire her, destroy her employment record, and her life would be over. She couldn't afford college, couldn't get another decent job. Back to Bakersfield, to poverty, to her mother's disappointment. Honey, how could you lose such a good job? She raised her hand, knocked 3 times. It's open, came from inside. Cassidy pushed the door. The suite was luxurious. King bed, burgundy bedspread, heavy drapes, a table set with appetizers and bottles, leather chairs, a TV. On the bed sat a man in his mid-40s, heavy-set, shirt unbuttoned. Burkhart. He smiled. Well, finally. Barrett said he'd send someone to keep me company. What's your name, sweetheart? Cassidy. Pretty name. Come in, relax. Let's have a drink. He poured scotch into 2 glasses, handed her one. Cassidy took it. Her hands trembled. Burkhart clinked his glass against hers. To new friends. She drank it in 1 gulp. It burned her throat, made her dizzy. Burkhart laughed. Whoa! Someone knows how to drink. Want another? Everything after that was a blur. Burkhart talked, told jokes, poured more drinks. Cassidy drank because it made the horror more bearable. The alcohol dulled everything. Then Burkhart put his hand on her knee, then kissed her, then pulled her toward the bed. She didn't resist. She just closed her eyes and disconnected inside. This wasn't happening to her. This was happening to someone else. She left Suite 214 at midnight. The hallway was dark and empty. She walked to the staff locker room in a daze, changed, left through the back exit. Walked through the night, not seeing where she was going. Got back to staff housing, went to her room. Her roommates were asleep. Cassidy lay on her bed fully clothed and stared at the ceiling. No tears, just emptiness. The next morning she got up as usual, showered, dressed, went to work. Maureen gave her a long look but said nothing. Cassidy set tables, served breakfast, smiled at guests. Autopilot. At lunch, Ashford summoned her again. Good job, he said. Mr. Burkhart was pleased. Tonight it'll be Suite 307. Mr. Lowell, chief engineer at an aerospace company. Pleasant man. 10 p.m. That's how her double life began. By day, she was a server. By night, a living toy for important men. Ashford had it organized perfectly. He knew which guests wanted entertainment. He selected the girls. He gave them suite numbers. He controlled everything. Refusing was impossible. Refusal meant termination, a destroyed employment record, the end of any career. In the first week, Cassidy went to 4 suites. In the second, 5. The men varied, some rough, some polite, some drunk, some sober. But the essence was the same. They bought her body through Ashford's silence. They knew these girls wouldn't dare complain, wouldn't go to the police because they worked here and had everything to lose. Cassidy lost weight. Dark circles appeared under her eyes. She stopped sleeping. That night, returning from another suite, she'd lie awake for hours, staring into darkness. During the day, she walked like a zombie. Her mother called, asked, "Honey, you sound sad. Are you sick?" Cassidy answered, "Everything's fine, Mom, just working hard." She thought about escaping. But where? Home to Bakersfield, back to poverty? Mom would immediately ask, "Why'd you leave such a good job?" What could she say? She couldn't tell the truth. Lying wouldn't work. Mom would see through it. All that was left was to endure, to stay silent, to die inside, piece by piece. But then a new girl started work in the Palmetto House dining room, and everything changed. Her name was Sloane Mercer. She was 22, from Sacramento. She had dark hair cut short, sharp cheekbones, serious black eyes. She carried herself differently than the other servers. No giggling, no gossiping, no nervous energy. She worked silently, precisely, like a soldier. Cassidy noticed her immediately but didn't try to make friends. She'd stopped making friends. What was the point? Just to discover Sloane had disappeared too? But Sloane approached her after a week. It was after lunch in the locker room. They were alone. Sloane closed the door, turned to Cassidy. "He's making you do it too, isn't he?" she asked, quietly but firmly. Cassidy froze. "What? Don't play dumb. I can see it. You have the same look the other girls had. I did some research, talked to people, found out about Deanna Fletcher. She told someone what was happening here before she left. I know what's going on. Ashford, the company for guests, the blackmail, all of it." Cassidy sank onto the bench, trembling. "So what? There's nothing anyone can do. He's untouchable. If you speak up, he'll destroy you." "He's not untouchable." Sloane sat next to her. "Everyone's afraid, but if we gather evidence and take it to the right people, they'll take him down." "The right people? The police? He probably has half the local cops in his pocket. The mayor golfs here. State senators vacation here. Who's going to touch him?" "The FBI," Sloane said. "Federal Bureau of Investigation. They're above local corruption. If we show them evidence that the manager of an elite resort is running a prostitution ring, coercing employees, they'll act. This is sex trafficking, racketeering. They'll nail him." Cassidy stared at her. "How do you know this?" "My father was a federal prosecutor. He died 2 years ago, but I learned a few things. The system doesn't like scandals, but it hates even more when someone abuses power this blatantly. Ashford thinks he's untouchable. That's his mistake." "But evidence. How do we get it?" "We don't have anything." Sloane reached into her bag, pulled out a small device. Cassidy recognized it. A micro-cassette recorder, the kind reporters used, small, pocket-sized. "I've been recording every conversation with Ashford, every time he gives me an assignment. I have 4 tapes already. His voice, his words, his threats, all documented. If we add witness statements from girls he's exploited, written affidavits, the case will be solid." Cassidy felt something stir inside. Hope. Tiny, fragile, but alive. "You'll go to the FBI?" "I will, but I need support. If I file alone, they might dismiss me as a disgruntled employee with a grudge. But if multiple women file complaints, if we have recordings, if there's a clear pattern, then it's different." "He'll kill us." "He won't have time." Steel in Sloane's voice. I've thought this through. We gather everything we need. I hand it directly to an FBI agent my father knew. He's honest, won't leak it. He'll launch an investigation. They'll remove Ashford quickly and quietly. We won't be touched because we're victims. In fact, they'll relocate us, give us clean employment records to bury the scandal. That's how the system works. It protects itself by removing threats to its reputation. Cassidy was silent. She wanted to believe. She wanted so badly for Ashford to pay. But fear was stronger. Think about it. Sloane stood. If you decide to help, let me know. But we don't have much time. He's already eyeing the new girls. Soon there'll be more victims. The faster we act, the more people we save. She left. Cassidy sat in the locker room for half an hour, head in her hands. A war raged inside. Fear versus hope. Silence versus truth. Slavery versus freedom. That evening, Ashford summoned her again. Suite 418. Mr. Thornton, a hedge fund manager. 10 p.m. And Cassidy decided. The next day after her shift, she found Sloane. I'm with you, she said simply. Sloane nodded. Okay, let's begin. They developed a plan. Sloane had been carrying her recorder for 3 weeks whenever Ashford called her to his office. She'd recorded every word, his orders, his threats, his cynical instructions. Sweet such and such, Mr. So-and-so. Be charming, or I'll fire you. Everything was on tape. She had 4 cassettes so far. They needed more. Needed to record him coercing different girls. Show this wasn't isolated. It was an organized system. Cassidy started recording too. Sloane lent her a second micro recorder bought at a pawn shop. Cassidy carried it in her vest pocket. When Ashford summoned her to his office, she'd discreetly press record. The first time, her hands shook so badly she feared he'd hear. But no, Ashford talked, not suspecting every word was being captured. Tonight, Suite 503, Mr. Kendrick, CEO of a pharmaceutical company. Likes them young. Do your best. Otherwise, Brennan, I might reconsider your employment. Could write that you showed up drunk to work. With that in your file, you wouldn't get hired at a Denny's. The tape rolled. Cassidy left the office, stopped in the bathroom, rewound the cassette, hid it in her bra. That evening, she gave it to Sloane. Sloane took it, nodded. Perfect. Keep going. They worked carefully, told no one, met only in private, the locker room or a secluded corner of the staff area, exchanged tapes, discussed details. Sloane kept meticulous records, dates, names, suite numbers. She was building a case file. Every meeting with Ashford was documented, every assignment recorded. But there were only 2 of them. Not enough. They needed more witnesses, needed former employees who'd escaped, needed their statements. I'm going to find Deanna Fletcher, Sloane said. I know people who stayed in touch with her. I'll track her down through them, see if I can convince her to write a statement. What about the others? Whitney Russo moved to San Diego. I have her mother's address. I'll write. Explain the situation. Maybe she'll respond. There's also Valerie Donovan, worked here last year, disappeared. Her parents are in Fresno. I'll try to contact them. Sloane worked like a professional investigator. She gathered facts, names, dates. She reconstructed the chain. Over 3 years, at least 15 girls had passed through Ashford's hands, all young, all from working-class backgrounds, all vulnerable. He selected those without connections, without protection, those who feared losing their jobs. 2 weeks later, they had 8 cassettes and 3 written statements from former employees. Deanna agreed to meet. She came to a coffee shop in town, thin, pale, fear in her eyes. But when Sloane explained the plan, Deanna straightened. I'll write everything, she said. Everything he did, every vile thing. Just promise me he'll pay. He won't go to prison, Sloane said honestly. Men like him rarely do. But he'll be removed, and he won't hurt anyone else again. I can promise you that. Deanna wrote a detailed statement, 4 pages. Cassidy read it and cried. Everything she'd experienced, Deanna had too. The same system, the same horror, the same mechanism. Whitney Russo sent a letter from San Diego, brief but powerful. I'll testify. I'll write everything, just tell me when and where. Valerie Donovan responded through her mother. She'd moved to Portland, trying to forget, but she'd come back to testify if needed. By the end of April, the case file was complete. 10 cassettes of Ashford's recordings, 5 written statements from victims, a list of guest names who'd participated in this scheme, dates, suite numbers, details, everything clean, documented, verified. One thing remained. Get it to the FBI. I'm going tomorrow, Sloane said. There's an agent named Marcus Delaney. He worked with my father on organized crime cases. He's a good man. He'll see me. I'll hand everything over. He'll launch an internal investigation. Within a couple weeks, Ashford will be gone. What about us? We'll be protected. Witness protection if needed, relocation assistance, clean employment records. The feds want this buried quietly. It's in their interest for us to stay silent and satisfied. Cassidy exhaled. When are you going? Tomorrow morning. I have the day off. I'll drive to the FBI field office in San Francisco, request a meeting with Delaney. Tell them I'm the daughter of a former prosecutor. He'll see me. They hugged. For the first time in months, Cassidy felt relief. Soon this would be over. Soon Ashford would get what he deserved. But fate had other plans. That night, Cassidy couldn't sleep. She lay in her room at staff housing, replaying everything in her mind. Tomorrow, Sloane would go to the FBI. Tomorrow, the investigation would begin. Tomorrow, their nightmare would end. At 3 a.m., she heard heavy footsteps in the corridor, then pounding on the door. Open up! Sheriff's Department! Her roommates jumped up. Cassidy froze. What was happening? The door burst open. 2 deputies in uniform and a man in civilian clothes entered. Cassidy recognized him. Gerald Voss, Ashford's assistant manager, a weasel-faced man with a permanent smirk. Cassidy Brennan? He asked. Yes? Get dressed. You're coming with us. Where? Why? You'll find out. Move. They took her to the county sheriff's substation, put her in a cold room with bare walls and 1 light bulb. Cassidy held herself together. She understood. Ashford had found out. How, she didn't know, but he'd found out, and now he was striking back. An hour later, a deputy walked in, overweight, unshaven, bloodshot eyes. All right, Brennan, we can do this easy or hard. Your choice. Do what? Talk about the theft. Your boss, Mr. Ashford, filed a complaint. Says you've been stealing food from the resort, selling it. Got witnesses. Got evidence. You're looking at a felony. Grand theft. Could be 2-3 years. State prison. Want that? Cassidy understood. He was breaking her down, scaring her, wanted her to confess to a theft that never happened. I didn't steal anything. This is a lie. A lie? The deputy smirked. Witnesses say different. Maureen Kowalski, head server, gave a statement. Gerald Voss confirms. The kitchen manager saw you too. Everyone saw you taking butter, cheese, deli meat. So don't play innocent. Confess. Write a statement saying you'll pay it back and won't do it again. We'll let you go with a warning. Don't confess? This goes to the DA, and you'll do time. Cassidy stayed silent. She knew. If she signed a confession, Ashford would have leverage. He'd use it to discredit her. He'd say, she's a bitter thief trying to get revenge by making up stories. I won't sign. The deputy sighed. Stupid girl. Fine. Sit here till morning. Think about it. They locked her in a holding cell, cold, reeking, with a metal bench and a toilet in the corner. Cassidy sat on the bench, hugged her knees. What now? Where was Sloane? Did she know Cassidy had been arrested? In the morning they called her back, but this time it wasn't the deputy who entered. It was Ashford himself. He sat across from her, lit a cigarette, watched her silently, then smiled. Cold, predatory. Thought you could outsmart me, Brennan. Thought I wouldn't find out about your little games with Mercer. Thought I was an idiot. Cassidy went pale. He knew. He knew about Sloane, about the recordings, about everything. I know everything, Ashford continued, as if reading her thoughts. The recorders, the tapes, the letters from former employees, your pathetic plan to go to the FBI, everything. I have eyes and ears everywhere. Your friend Mercer is sitting in another holding cell right now, crying like a baby. I have the tapes. I have the letters. Evidence destroyed. Case closed. Cassidy felt everything collapse. The entire plan. All hope. Now, listen to what happens next. Ashford stubbed out his cigarette. You both sign resignation letters. Voluntary termination. You get standard references, nothing good, nothing bad. You leave Monterey and forget the Palmetto House ever existed. Forget about me. Forget all of it. If you comply, I won't touch you. But if you try anything, say one word to anyone, I'll destroy you. I'll fabricate charges, get you convicted, break you. I have connections. I can reach you even if you run to Alaska. Understood? Cassidy was silent. Ashford stood, leaned close. I asked if you understood. Yes. Excellent. He straightened. You'll be released tonight. Tomorrow you'll come to the resort, write your resignation, collect your things, and disappear. And pray I forget about you. He left. They returned Cassidy to the cell. She sat there until evening, staring blankly at the wall. It was over. They'd lost. That evening they released both of them, Sloane, too. They met on the street outside the sheriff's station. Sloane was pale, red-eyed, but in her gaze, hatred still burned. He took everything, she said hoarsely. All the tapes, all the statements. How did he know? I don't know. They walked through downtown Monterey in silence. The town went about its business, tourists, shops, laughter from restaurants, and they were dead inside. What now? Cassidy asked. I don't know. But Sloane did know. She was still thinking, and by morning she had a new plan. The next day they went to the Palmetto House, but not to Ashford's office. They went to the accounting department and requested a meeting with Claire Templeton, the head accountant. An older, stern woman, she'd worked at the Palmetto House for 20 years and knew all its secrets. We want to file a formal complaint against Mr. Ashford, Sloane said, officially, with the corporate office. Claire frowned. On what grounds? Sexual coercion. He's forcing female employees into sexual situations with guests, threatening termination if they refuse. That's illegal under both state and federal law. Sexual assault, racketeering. The accountant was quiet, then said softly, Do you have evidence? We did. He confiscated it. But there are witnesses, girls who can corroborate. And most importantly, there's me and Brennan. We're willing to testify. Without evidence, nothing will happen. Your word against his. Who do you think they'll believe? Then we'll go to the press, Sloane persisted. We'll write to the San Francisco Chronicle, the LA Times. Let the whole state know what's happening at this luxury resort. Claire shook her head. They'll bury you. Ashford has connections with the corporate board. The papers won't publish. You'll be sued for defamation. Girls, I understand your frustration, but you can't win this. They left the accounting office defeated. It seemed all was lost. But as they descended the stairs, Claire called out. She peeked from her office, checked the corridor, and whispered, "There's one person who might help. Come tonight at 7 to the Cannery Row bookstore. I'll introduce you, but tell no one." At 7 that evening, Cassidy and Sloane stood outside a bookstore on Cannery Row. Claire appeared 5 minutes later. With her was a man in his 50s, lean, wiry, with intelligent gray eyes. He wore civilian clothes but carried himself like law enforcement. "This is Marcus Delaney," Claire introduced him, "FBI special agent, friend of my late husband. I told him about your situation. He's agreed to help." Delaney shook their hands. His grip was firm, confident. "Let's walk on the wharf," he said. "We'll talk there." They sat on a bench at the wharf. Delaney lit a cigarette, studied the two women. "Tell me everything, in order, just facts, no emotions." Sloane told the story, calmly, precisely, like a briefing. Cassidy added details. Delaney listened without interrupting. When they finished, he was silent for a long time, watching his cigarette burn. "The situation is serious," he finally said. "But you're right. Without evidence, the case won't proceed. Ashford is smart. He seized the tapes, destroyed the proof. Your testimony is words. Words aren't enough without corroboration." "So it was all for nothing?" Cassidy asked bitterly. "Not for nothing. There's an option, but it's risky." Delaney crushed his cigarette. "I'm officially retired from the Bureau last month, but I still have contacts. I can reach current agents in the San Francisco field office. If they see legitimate interest, they might initiate a discreet investigation. But for that, we need something substantial. Some hook that shows Ashford isn't just harassing employees, he's running a criminal enterprise." "What kind of hook?" Sloane asked. "Money. Finances. If he's taking cash payments from guests for these services, if he's running an off-books operation, if he's profiting from this, that's a prosecutable offense. That's sex trafficking for profit. That's RICO. For that, the FBI will definitely pay attention." "He is taking money," Sloane said confidently. "I've seen it. Guests hand him envelopes. He locks them in his safe." "Prove it." Delaney looked her in the eye. "Photograph it. Record a payment on tape. Bring me a document, a receipt, any confirmation. Then I can move the case forward." "How?" Cassidy spread her hands. "We're leaving tomorrow. He's forcing us out. We don't have access." Delaney thought. "Will you work one more shift?" "Probably." "Then use it. Find a way into his office. Photograph documents from the safe, or record him taking a payment. Anything. One piece of evidence is enough to get started." "That's dangerous," Claire interjected. If he catches them, it'll be worse than just termination," Delaney agreed. "But the choice is yours. You want justice, you'll have to take the risk. You don't? Leave, hide, live with this burden your whole lives." Cassidy and Sloane looked at each other. Then Sloane nodded. "We'll take the risk." The next day they reported for work as usual. Ashford was waiting in his office with resignation paperwork, but Sloane asked for an extension. "Mr. Ashford, give us one more week to work. We need to train the new servers properly or the dining room will fall apart. Maureen asked us herself." Ashford narrowed his eyes. "Why do you need a week? Planning to cause more trouble?" "No, we understand now. We just want to leave properly, get our final paychecks, train replacements. My mother's sick in Sacramento. I need money for her medical bills. Let me work, earn enough for travel." He considered, then nodded. 1 week, but complete silence. Work quietly, leave quietly. Try anything, you'll regret it. Understood. 1 week, 7 days to find evidence. Sloane made a plan. They'd watch, wait for guests to hand Ashford envelopes, try to record or photograph it. Delaney had given them a small Minolta camera. Only critical shots. You have 36 exposures. The first 3 days, nothing happened. Ashford was cautious. No envelopes, no meetings. But on the 4th day, a delegation arrived from Los Angeles, entertainment executives on a golf retreat. Ashford personally welcomed them, arranged a banquet, supervised everything. That evening, Cassidy saw one of the guests, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, linger with Ashford in the lobby. They talked quietly. Then the guest discreetly passed Ashford a thick envelope. Ashford pocketed it and nodded. Transaction complete. Cassidy didn't get the shot, too fast, but she memorized the guest's face and his suite number, 304. Sloane found out. The guest was Victor Parnell, senior vice president at a major film studio. Big fish. If he was paying Ashford, he was getting special services. Probably company, too. We need to catch them red-handed, Sloane said. If Ashford sends a girl to him, we can time it, photograph it, prove that an executive is paying for sexual services through the resort manager. That's corruption. That's exploitation. The FBI will tear him apart. How do we know when he'll send someone? I'm watching. He calls girls to his office evenings, gives assignments. Today's Saturday. Parnell's here through Monday. Ashford will arrange entertainment tonight. They waited. At 9 p.m., Ashford called Riley, a new server, barely 18. Sloane overheard at the door. Ashford gave instructions. Suite 304, Mr. Parnell, 10 o'clock. Be pleasant. Riley came out in tears. Sloane intercepted her. Listen, sweetie, you can help us, and yourself. We're trying to stop Ashford. We need your help. Riley looked at her terrified. How? Go to that suite like he told you, but leave the balcony door unlocked. We'll get in through there, take photos. That'll be enough for the case. Then you leave, tell Parnell you feel sick. That's it. What if I get fired? You won't. In 2 days, Ashford will be gone. We promise. Riley hesitated, then nodded. Okay, I'll unlock the balcony. At 10 p.m., Riley entered Suite 304. Parnell greeted her with cognac. Come in, don't be shy. Riley went inside. The balcony was hidden behind heavy curtains. She walked over, pretended to admire the ocean view, and quietly unlatched the sliding door. On the adjacent balcony, hidden in darkness, were Sloane and Cassidy. They'd climbed there via a service stairway. Sloane held the camera. Cassidy had a tape recorder running. They waited. 1 minute, 2, 5. Finally, voices from Suite 304. Riley said, I'm sorry, Mr. Parnell. I'm not feeling well. Can I leave? Parnell grumbled, annoyed. Fine, go. Tell Ashford next time to send someone more professional. Riley left. Parnell stayed. He poured himself cognac, lit a cigar, stepped onto the balcony. Sloane held her breath. He stood 10 feet away on the other side of a dividing wall and darkness. Damn it, he muttered to himself. Girls these days have no stamina. Ashford used to pick better. He smoked for 10 minutes, then went back inside. Sloane and Cassidy waited, then quietly descended the fire escape. The evidence was thin, but they'd captured something. Parnell's voice, his words about Ashford. Riley was a witness. 2 more days passed. It was their last Sunday before termination. Sloane learned Ashford was leaving for his beach house Saturday evening and wouldn't return until Monday morning. His office would be empty all Sunday. This was their last chance. This is insane, Cassidy said. If we get caught, we'll be arrested for breaking and entering. We won't get caught. I know the security patrol schedule. There's a window, 20 minutes. We'll make it. What about the safe? Can you crack it? No, but I know where Ashford keeps the key. I saw him. He hides it in a book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, on the shelf behind his desk. He thinks nobody knows. but I saw. On Sunday evening at 10, when the resort had quieted down, they slipped into the administrative wing. Sloane picked the office lock with a tool she'd learned to use from her father's old case files. The door opened. The office was dark, empty. Cassidy stood watch at the door. Sloane went to the bookshelf, found the book, opened it. Inside was a hollowed-out space, and in it, a small key. She walked to the safe. An old Mosler office safe, gray, heavy. The key turned with a scrape. The door swung open. Inside were file folders. Sloane pulled out a flashlight, scanned them. Papers, invoices, ledgers. Stop! Envelopes. 5 thick envelopes bound with a rubber band. She opened one. Cash. $100 bills. A lot. She quickly photographed them. Click, click, click. Then found a ledger, opened it. There were entries, names, dates, amounts. Burkhart, $500, March 15th. Kendrick, $400, March 22nd. Parnell, $800, April 10th. A client list, a payment log. This was gold. Direct proof Ashford was taking money for services. Sloane photographed every page. The film was running out. Last exposure. "Hurry!" Cassidy whispered from the door. "I hear something." Sloane shoved everything back, closed the safe, returned the key to the book. They bolted from the office, locked the door, ran down the corridor, turned a corner, stopped, listened. Footsteps passed by. A security guard. He hadn't noticed. They escaped through the service exit, made it outside, breathed heavily, hearts pounding. But they had the film. They had proof. Monday morning, they met Delaney at a coffee shop in town, handed in the film. He pocketed it carefully. "If this is what you say it is, the case will move. I'll pass it to my contacts. They'll open an investigation. Stand by." "How long?" "A week, maybe 2. The system works slowly, but it works." Cassidy and Sloane returned to the Palmetto House, worked their final shift, wrote resignation letters. Ashford accepted them with a satisfied smirk. "Smart girls. Finally learned you can't fight me. Get out of here and forget everything." They left, collected their final paychecks, packed from staff housing. Sloane went back to Sacramento. Cassidy went home to Bakersfield. They separated but called each other every day. Waiting. 9 days later, Delaney called. "Come back to Monterey. Tomorrow. They need your statements." They returned. Delaney met them outside the FBI field office in San Jose. The film worked. They launched an internal investigation, called Ashford in for questioning. "He's denying everything, but the evidence is solid. You'll be interviewed by an agent. Tell them everything that happened, just the truth." They were taken to an office. A young but hard-eyed FBI agent sat there. He interviewed them separately. Cassidy told everything, the coercion, the sweets, the threats. Sloane corroborated. The agent took notes, then said, "Thank you. That's sufficient. You're free to go." "What happens now?" Sloane asked. "Now he'll be removed from his position, quietly, without publicity. Officially, health reasons. Actually, for bringing disrepute to the hospitality industry and criminal misconduct. He'll be blacklisted from management positions. Maybe face federal charges if the U.S. attorney decides to prosecute. But that's not my call." "What about the girls? The ones he exploited?" "They'll be offered settlements, relocation assistance, clean employment records. The resort ownership doesn't want a scandal, so everyone will be taken care of." Cassidy and Sloane exchanged glances. It was a victory. Not the public trial they'd wanted. No perp walk, no front-page headlines. But a victory. Ashford was finished. 2 weeks later, they learned the details. Ashford had resigned for personal health reasons. He was banned from working in hospitality management, given a severance, and quietly told to disappear. Riley, Cassidy, and 3 other girls who agreed to give statements received job placements at other resorts, clean records, and financial settlements with NDAs attached. The system buried the scandal. Nobody ever knew. But Ashford could never hurt anyone again. Summer 1982. Cassidy was working as a front desk coordinator at a resort in Santa Barbara. Clean work, decent pay, no coercion. She was 20. She'd saved enough to start community college in the fall. Life was getting better. But some nights she still dreamed of Ashford's office, his hand on her shoulder, his cold voice. Understand. She'd wake in a cold sweat, but then she'd remember he was gone, powerless, and she'd fall asleep again. Sloane got a job too, working at a women's crisis center in Sacramento, helping survivors of sexual violence. Sometimes they'd call each other, talk about life, about plans, never about the past. The past was buried. But one autumn afternoon in 1982, Sloane called Cassidy and said, "I heard Ashford died. Heart attack. He was 53. Cassidy was quiet, then softly said, "Good." Sloane didn't answer. They both knew. It wasn't joy. It was relief. He was gone. He couldn't hurt anyone ever again. That evening, Cassidy stood on the balcony of her small apartment, watched the sunset over the Pacific. The ocean was beautiful, calm, alive. Somewhere down the coast stood the Palmetto House, white, majestic. Important people still vacationed there. New servers still worked there. Maybe some of them were like she once was. She hoped not. She hoped everything was different now. The system protected itself. The system removed those who created problems. Ashford created a problem. They removed him. But the system didn't change. Privilege remained privilege. Power remained power. And somewhere, in some other resort, some other hotel, there might be another Ashford preying on the vulnerable. But Cassidy had done what she could. She hadn't stayed silent. She'd fought. And she'd won. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes victory isn't about changing the system. Victory is about not letting the system change you. Not breaking. Not surrendering. Not becoming complicit. Cassidy was 20 when the story ended. A whole life lay ahead. She'd study, work, fall in love, build a career. She'd live. And Ashford would remain in the past, dead and forgotten. That was justice. Not perfect, not public, but real. The sun set below the horizon. The California coast settled into twilight. Cassidy closed the balcony door, went inside. Tomorrow was a new day, and in that day, she was free.